I'm Josh Williamson. I'm the pastor of Newquay Baptist Church here in Cornwall. We have had an exciting few weeks here in Newquay. Things that we could never imagine have occurred. It all started with a comment in relation to biblical sexuality, and now as a result, there are mobs threatening to burn down our church, and sadly the police don't seem to want to act. It all began a few weeks ago now when Cornwall Pride announced that they were going to be continuing their Pride celebration here in Newquay, and they started to do a public fundraising effort. And as a church, we were concerned that this event was going ahead, so at our prayer meeting, we began to pray. Our prayer was one born out of love for the LGBT community. We want what's best for them, so we prayed first and foremost that the Lord would convert them, that the Lord would bring them out of their sins and they would come to know and love the Lord Jesus who died for sinners. And secondly, we prayed that the Pride event would be cancelled. Now, we prayed that on the Tuesday night. The Tuesday evening, we gathered as a church, we prayed, and on Thursday, news broke that Cornwall Pride had been cancelled for 2020. Now, we took this as an answer to prayer. We believe in a God who answers prayer, so we rightly rejoiced in this. Our local news media in Cornwall, Cornwall Live, then had an article detailing the cancellation of the Pride event. And I noticed on the Facebook page for Cornwall Live that there were many people making comments such as, "This is great, good decision, it should have been cancelled," and so forth. And I added my voice to that chorus by simply putting a two-word response, "Wonderful news." That's all I said, wonderful news. But those comments were enough to set the LGBT community and Cornwall Pride into a frenzy. Before I realised what was happening, Cornwall Pride had come onto my private Facebook page and they were screenshotting things that appeared on my page. They also screenshotted and edited comments that were made on the Cornwall Live page. And then they took comments from other people that were quite derogatory. And they took all these comments together, they blacked out the name, and they posted them openly on the Cornwall Pride Facebook page, and they made it appear as if all the comments came from the same person. And of course, Newquay Baptist Church was mentioned. And that began the campaign of anti-Christian hate that we have had to endure for the past few weeks. Some of the anti-Christian hate that we have seen have included threats towards my wife, threats towards the church. There has been threats of violence. There's been threats to burn down the church. People even managed to get my photograph, photoshopped my head onto a scene from a homosexual pornographic film, and then posted that openly and online. There were many what I would term Christophobic comments where people were seeking to attack Christians and denounce them, and abusive comments towards the Christian faith. But we know that people can be abusive towards Christianity because they abuse the Lord Jesus as well. But what was greatly concerning was the threats of violence, the threats of harm, the threats that if I was ever seen in public or handed out literature, I would be decked or hurt, or if I attended an event, I would be assaulted. But then there was the people on different LGBT groups and pages calling for the church to be burnt down, calling for people to come along to our services, to protest, to hold a sexual orgy in the church. Others calling for the church to be overrun with protesters during a service. All of this was designed to intimidate and to bully. In response to police contacting us about our complaint of the threats of violence towards our church in burning down the chapel, the police informed me and they advised me that I should keep my opinions to myself and keep them to the safety of our own environment, i.e. the church, that we should not express our views in public unless we offend the LGBT community. I find it greatly concerning that even though mobs were clamouring to destroy our church, we are the ones being advised that we should stay silent. I think the police should actually be looking into those who are making threats of violence towards a church. Throughout the situation, we've been facing opposition from a man who is a leader within Cornwall Pride and also a Newquay Town Councillor, Stephen Hick. This Labour politician has advocated things which I would deem discriminatory, hateful, dangerous. He has publicly gone into the media here in Newquay calling on businesses and individuals to deny myself and the church access to their premises. I find it greatly alarming that we have a elected official of government calling on the community to say, do not do business with these Christians. Now, the question I have to ask is, how will the businesses and how will the community identify who the Christians are? Is Mr. Hick going to require us to wear a yellow cross or something on our shirts? It's unknown. As an Australian who is here under proper visa conditions, Mr. Hick has called on the Home Office to revoke my visa and to deport me. I thought the days of colonialism was gone. I thought the days of deporting people to Australia were gone. But Mr. Hick seems to have deemed me a criminal, as a person who is not fit for British society, and he wants me out of the country, and that is what he's calling for. So what that tells me is that Mr. Hick, as a politician and as a leader of Cornwall Pride, has declared that the historic Christian message is no longer welcome in the UK. That the historic biblical teaching of sexuality, the historic biblical teaching of gender and marriage is no longer to be permitted in this country. And I find such discrimination as reprehensible, as racist in nature, and I think it's just absolutely terrible. What happened to free society when you can no longer disagree with the LGBT community?